Hello. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic.
I love it. Happy Independence Day.
Happy day after Independence Day.
Very true. Hello, everybody. I'm Michelle with Moksha Grace Coaching,
And I am Krista with Wicked Wisdom Consulting.
and we are here for a moment of presence. And we're going to dive into an interesting topic today, fun, freeing. Let freedom ring.
Yes, indeed.
What exactly does that mean? We'll get into after we do our deep breaths. And if you know somebody who needs this message today about freedom and what that would look like and feel like, please share this out to them. Share it on your page. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow us. And you have anything to add before we go into our deep breaths?
I think we should dive right into the deep breaths.
Okay. So the reason we do the deep breaths, if you are new here, is to bring us into the moment, right? Because the art of being, not doing, but being is very important. And it helps you listen, right? Be more focused and actually absorb the message that is being brought to you today by Michelle and Krista. So we're going to take 3 deep breaths. We're going to hold at the top, and then we're going to exhale for 5. All right. So big, deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. Big inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Big exhale. One more time. Big inhale. Let all those emotions come up for you. Anything that's on your mind today, on your heart. Big exhale. Good?
Love that exercise.
Me too. Breathing does the body good.
Go figure.
So freedom. What does freedom feel like? And what kind of I guess we should say, what kind of freedom are we talking about first? And then we can see what does that feel like. So I was thinking emotional freedom, and how do you find emotional freedom? But what does that mean that we have to let go of to get there first? What was your thought?
My thought was freedom from other people's perception of you, impact on you, energy around you, thoughts, feelings, emotions, etc., and not letting those things affect you. Because I know I personally, one of my biggest things observing society right now is that seems to be the biggest thing that's really causing a lot of turmoil, is needing other people to be a certain way for you. And that's not a healthy way of living, because if you're depending on other people for you to feel good, you're depending on the wrong thing.
It's true. And it's also very challenging.
Oh, absolutely. And it can be very painful at first.
Yeah. And it can be very lonely.
Yes.
Very lonely. And I think that that's something important to talk about a bit first, because when you do internal work, there's going to be loss.
Yeah.
People that are not aligned with you, people that just don't understand this new version of you. They don't necessarily like it. It's uncomfortable. So it impacts their comfort zone, and they're not comfortable with it. So then they push back or they fight against it. They're afraid of losing you, right? So there's all of these reasons why people will try to grab hold of you.
Right. Well, I was going to say, yeah, because a lot of times people, they know something's different. They know the relationship, romantic, platonic, familial, whatever it is, feels different, but they don't know what to do with that. And so because they may not be on the same journey as you, they don't know how to process those emotions and feelings in the same way. So they may resort to more human nature behavior, maybe not as productive
Yeah.
behavior, which only causes more distance. And that's where not relying on other people really comes into play too.
Right. Because really the only person you really truly in this world, there's family and loved ones and friends and soul families that
Mm-hmm.
you have, right, in your circle.
Right.
But the only thing you can really depend on and control is yourself.
Right. And how you feel. And it's interesting because we have to remember too that this goes both ways. You can't rely on other people to make you feel to, or you can't have other people changing the way that they are and act and do and be so that you don't feel bad, but you also can't rely on other people for you to feel good. If you can only feel good when other people are giving you positive feedback, that's not healthy either.
No.
But it feels like maybe it is when you're in it because, well, but it's making me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
But if when it's not happening, you don't feel good or you feel just nothing, that's also not great.
Right. So it actually ties right along with, you know, 4th of July versus saying 4th of July versus Independence Day. It's the same thing with freedom and independence. If you're dependent on somebody else, you're not truly independent.
Correct.
And
You're not
then
truly free.
right. And then you're not truly free, which kind of all coincides with what we were talking about and what we were celebrating yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the emotional piece, you know, it can be challenging when you're in a group of people or in a situation, whether it's a boss or your coworkers or friends or family. Maybe there's a lot of people feeling that from, you know, spending time with family yesterday and friends, where you show up and you may be in a great mood and then what happens?
Right. Right.
You know, something throws you off, a question is asked,
Someone says something that offends you,
or you say something that offends them and then they fight back.
and then there's fallout. Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. These are all things that can weigh you down if you let them.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that always, when those situations happen, that I pull into my head is, you know, that favorite fun saying of mine is, not my circus, not my monkeys.
Yeah.
It's just, this is your journey. This is your situation. I'm showing up and being my authentic self. That's what I'm here to do. It is not in my control how you take me, how you receive the message or receive my energy or what I have to say, my intention, right? If my intention is from love and that energy is being put out there, if they're not receiving it, it's not in my power to control them or force them to receive my intention, my good intention.
Right. And I mean, it sounds a little bit cliche, but what other people say, do, feel, etc., really truly has nothing to do with you. Even if someone is absolutely laying into you because you're in the middle of an argument, you can choose to see this as my fault.
Right.
Or you can choose to look at it and say, okay, what emotion is coming up for them? So an example might be, let's say a wife gets super pissed off at her husband because she's asked him to take the garbage out a million times, and now they're in an argument about it.
Right.
The husband may be saying to himself, oh my God, why is she getting so upset with me? Blah, blah, blah. We could choose to look at this from two different ways. Option A is, oh, she's not feeling very supported right now. She asked me to do this. I got sucked into the game. Okay, she did ask me to do this 2 hours ago. She's in the middle of cooking. She hasn't been able to throw anything away. Okay, I get it. Yeah, maybe that was my bad. Let me take care of this. You're right. And then you can solve the problem from a constructive place versus just going, oh my God, she's always nagging me, and she's such a word, and oh my God, and just blow it out of proportion and keep on that low energy, low vibing way of thinking of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Raymond says, you can't understand personal freedom until you learn to enjoy your own company in solitude, not to be confused with loneliness.
Correct. Amen.
Yes, absolutely.
Amen.
And being alone, you're not really alone. Being within yourself, you have a whole internal family. For those of you who haven't worked with me, maybe you don't know, or you haven't been introduced to your inner family, but that's a lot of the work that I do and I love to do, is to help clients bond, reconnect with their internal family. And that's where all of this emotional stuff comes up, because if your internal family, if you can't get uh, if you're not in peace with your internal family, there's going to be repercussions, and they're going to fight back, and there's going to be temper tantrums, and then that comes out externally and can,
with your external family.
yes, and it can come out to everybody else in your circle as temper tantrums. This isn't fair.
Reactive behavior.
Right. I'm not being supported. Right. Reactive behavior versus responsive. Going, wait, why am I feeling like, exactly like you said? Why am I feeling this way? And getting curious, not
Or
just
why is the other person feeling this way? Even it's
right.
Understanding.
Right. That's exactly where I was going, is being curious as to why that person is reacting that way, and assuming that you're picking, or you're being pushy, or you're nagging. What's happening? Where is this miscommunication? And when you get curious and not trying to blame, not trying to fix, but just trying to understand. And I think that's the biggest thing, is understanding that you're not there to fix, right? You can't fix somebody else. You can't save somebody else. You can only, if asked, give a guiding hand or some suggestions, or have a conversation, but you can't fix.
Right. Well, let's get back to internal freedom, because we're tangenting off into other people.
Yes.
Do you have any techniques or strategies that work for you in maintaining your own peace and calm when maybe there's a tumultuous situation that you're in the middle of?
Well, the first thing that I do, and I always, teach my clients to do, is always start your day with meditation. Because you have to raise your vibration before you're infiltrated from anybody else, right? Before anybody else comes into your circle, you should maintain your highest vibration that you can for that day, and get to where you want to be. Set an intention for your day. What is it that you want to get done? What do you want to feel for the day? And when you do that, when you then join, right, the world, you're going to be at a higher vibe. And so it's going to take more to knock you down, so to speak. You can't shield yourself from everything. And I think that's a big myth, right? People say, oh, well, just, put up your shield, or your boundaries. And you can do that to a point, but you don't also want to close yourself down to life, to living. You can't hide, in the corner of your bedroom. You've got to get out. You've got to live. So how can you maintain that, balance, or that harmony, is like what I like to call it, of keeping your vibe as high as possible. And you're going to have the low days, but be okay with that. And I think that's another part of emotional freedom, is understanding that there's going to be high and lows. That's universal law of rhythm. What goes up has to come down. What do you do in those times? What do you do for yourself, so you're not dependent on anyone else to bring you up? Right. What do you do?
I have a couple different strategies, but one that I think will resonate a lot with people, because something that comes up often, whether it's with your clients or people that I talk to, is, you get in a situation and now your nervous system is freaking out. Maybe there's an argument going on that you're not even involved with, but some people that you care about, and now your nervous system is heightened. You can't stand to be in the moment. Or actually, funny enough, the example you gave, I think, in the last moment of presence, where you go to Thanksgiving dinner, or your client went to
Yes.
Thanksgiving dinner, and she got to a point where she was like, okay, I gotta leave, I gotta go.
Okay.
What I have done, and this is a long-term technique and something that's not going to be right for everybody, but something that's worked for me, is training myself to be okay in uncomfortable energetic situations. I'm not talking about, obviously, people, let's use our brain. I'm not talking about dangerous situations here.
Right.
I'm talking about maybe I get in an argument with someone, or again, maybe there's an argument going on around me, whatever it is. I've trained myself to be able to kind of sit in those situations and soothe my nervous system without needing to go anywhere, without needing
Right.
anything from anyone else, and breathe through it. And over time, I now have a capacity to be able to stay in those situations versus needing to excuse myself. I'm
Yeah.
someone that cries very easily when I get overwhelmed, which crying is a way for your nervous system to regulate itself. So doing that exercise over time has allowed me to actually then be able to continue in conversations versus shutting down, immediately crying, and now we don't get to finish our conversation and we leave it on maybe a not so great note.
Right.
And when I say long term, I mean this potentially could take years, months, whatever it is, but it's catered to you. But it's really learning to adjust and adapt in those situations. That's really been a game changer.
Yeah. And I think that the time that it takes you to create that new habit or that new technique, right? And to really hone it in and make it your go-to is having accountability, whether you're holding yourself accountable, but even more so if you're, being coached, if you're seeing a therapist. These kind of things are good because what happens is you bring a situation in, and the coach, the therapist, an accountability buddy, somebody that you trust that is going to be honest with you and hold you to what you said you wanted to accomplish, is going to point out, okay, I understand the situation. What could have been done differently, or what difference would the outcome have been, right? If you had applied your technique, and how can you remember to then apply your technique more often in those situations? So I think that, we all can learn something new, right? Open a book, we read the chapter, we're like, oh, we're going to try this, it's going to work. And then we do it for a couple of days, and then we kind of drift and we forget about it, right? And then we start doing the other thing again, which was unhealthy to start with.
Right. Which is human nature.
It's human nature. It's absolutely. But I've seen the most growth in you, in myself, in clients, when they've had somebody to kind of pull them back and go, whoa, hold on a second. Let's take a look at this and get curious. What could have been different? No blame, no shame. But how could this have been different if you had used the techniques you had learned? And then really focusing on making it happen more often, right? And even testing the limit, because again, you can't practice it if you don't actively go. Not that you should go looking for fights.
No, but you shouldn't isolate yourself to avoid them either. And I want to bring up something really important about this, because yes, it's crucial to have an accountability someone that's going to hold you accountable, but you really don't want this to be somebody that's a friend of yours or a family member or something like that, because here's two scenarios that are likely to happen. Scenario A is they can't truly be honest with you and bring things up to you, because maybe you get upset by what they say and now you guys don't talk for a few days. And that happens a couple of times, and now they don't want to be honest with you anymore because that's going to cause rift in your personal relationship. Or two, maybe it has to do with them. Or maybe it's something that you don't really want them to know about. Well, now you have nobody to help you or guide you along the way. So I think there's a time and place, absolutely, for leaning on family and friends. But to just lean on family and friends and think that's going to be the answer if you're struggling with some things, I think is not the greatest route to take. You might get somewhere, but you're probably not going to get where you actually want.
Yeah, because if you're honest with yourself, are you always honest with the people in your circle? I mean, completely honest.
Right. That's a great point.
and having a trust that that information won't then go anywhere else.
Right.
And sometimes when you do trust the wrong person, then a situation can come in where that whatever it is that you shared is can then be used against you.
Right.
If you are not strong enough to be able to see it. And I think that's another, piece of this is the freedom to look in the mirror and go, mirror being the other person, right?
Mhm.
That is bringing something into uh your arena,
Field.
energy field that you don't want to experience, or so you say. What is it about that situation that is being reflected to you that you need to work on? Again, no blame or shame, but what is this trying to teach you? What is this situation going to teach you? What do you need to learn from this? And I
Right.
think that's really important too. And some people get annoyed, right, by that. Well, I didn't ask for this. On some level, these are all lessons that we are here to learn. And as my friend Raymond and I have been kind of going back in our group about is, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. If we're not here to be human, then what are we doing here? And
Right.
so what I think is funny is we're humans, spiritual beings having a human experience that's trying to be spiritual beings and remembering why we're spiritual beings. And so it's just this big circle. And so I think the more curious you get, the what is this for? Why? Why am I feeling this way? Why is this coming up for me? That's
Why
when
is this coming up for them? What are they feeling? It's
exactly
also not being totally focused on yourself either, and
right.
recognizing that other people also have their own feelings and thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
And what I heard on a podcast, and has absolutely nothing to do with spirituality, personal growth, whatever. It's like a comedy podcast. But the guy was talking about with his own kids, when one of the kids is having a temper tantrum, he heard from somebody else that is in the field, what kids can't always articulate what it is that they need. So what need is not being met right now in this temper tantrum? No matter what age you are, that's still the case. That's still what's happening. It may not be the 7 basic needs. Is it 7 basic needs? The basic human. It may not fall in that category, but there's some need that's not being fulfilled. And if you can look at it from, you're in an argument with somebody, or someone's upset about something related to you, what need of theirs is not being met right now?
Yeah.
What need of theirs is not being fulfilled? And then you can look at and then that completely changes the whole dynamic, the whole situation. And now you can look at it from that curious place and go, okay, how can I help them in this? How can I be supportive?
Right.
And that's also taking yourself out of the equation. This isn't my fault. Even if, let's say, the situation of the husband didn't take the garbage out, it's still not his fault that his wife is reacting the way that she is. But he can certainly help in the situation. He can certainly not take it personally and not hold it against her.
Yeah, absolutely. And so can she.
Absolutely. I was just going to get
say,
there.
wow, maybe I should have asked before the game was, started, or, I could ask during a commercial break,
Right.
or, there are those things too. But I think what you said about the 7 basic needs, and I that's so important. And I think that goes back to being curious about yourself as well.
Right.
Why am I reacting this way? What needs are not being met? Because if you're truly independent, right, and maintaining your own energy, your own vibration, then you have to monitor that. Right. What need am I not giving myself? And how can I do that? And there's always something, so many people, and I don't want to go too off into the law of attraction. However, that's part of it, because if you're not feeling good about your life, about your world, it's not anyone else's fault. You have choices. Why are you not making those choices? Again, no shame, no blame. Ask yourself, why am I not doing something? Why am I not asking for help? Why am I not being vulnerable? Am I afraid of being, vulnerable? Am I afraid of being judged? And when you can take that radical responsibility for yourself and your own emotions, that is when you let the freedom ring, because that's when you have that emotional freedom.
Right.
And you can't be controlled by others.
Correct.
And I think another important piece is that when you ask for help, when you put yourself out there and you're vulnerable, you have to make sure that you're prepared to receive help and guidance. Otherwise, don't put it out there, or frame it in, I just need to vent.
Right.
No response necessary, but here's what's happening with me. And then you can vent. And if you truly don't want any response, when you don't get any response, don't be upset. You told everybody. You know what I mean? So I think that those are important as well. What's your other technique? You said you had a couple that were your favorite.
Oh, this is a technique that I actually learned from therapy back in the day, which, listen, therapy is fantastic. I personally find it as more of a way to get you to a baseline. Because I've always found that therapy just kind of like, you keep going back and analyzing the past, which has its time and place. But like between that and coaching, I felt that coaching brought me more to the future and helped me progress more. But therapy was crucial for me at a certain point to get me to a baseline. And one of the strategies that my therapist had taught me was when I'm in a situation where I feel like something's my fault or someone is mad at me. I mean, that happens. That I can't even, the amount of times that I've heard someone say to me, I think so-and-so is mad at me because of this, this, and this. I go, okay, we'll try this strategy. It's not me. Even if it is you, it's not me. Say that to yourself, and it's going to feel absolutely stupid in the beginning. It is. You're going to be like, oh my God, this is so, and you just keep saying over and over again, it's not me. It's not me. It's not me. Until your nervous system relaxes.
Right.
And it freaking works. And you do that until you no longer believe that anything is your fault. Now, that's different than not taking responsibility for things, because sometimes things are your fault. But it's at least helping to train your nervous system not to be so heightened in one situation.
Yeah.
And to be able to get to a place where you can look at it and say, okay, why is this person reacting this way?
Yeah.
What about my actions affected them? And is there something that I need to change, or is this just something that they need to process?
Yeah.
Maybe that person didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Maybe something happened to them earlier in the day and you're just kind of catching the brunt of it. But if you can take yourself out of that and go, well, it's not me.
Right.
Then you're already 10 steps ahead.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important, with how you respond in that situation with it's not me, which is great. Also, don't give away your freedom by isolating yourself or doing anything different. Like there's a difference between accommodating somebody's temper tantrum, right, versus compromising. And so you have to kind of think this out of, in these situations, what can I do? What will I be doing when especially if you know somebody, if you live with somebody, if it happens frequently, whether it's a boss or it's a spouse or a companion, whatever, if you know that it's something that happens, then pre-plan for it. Like I have a friend who her husband, when he wakes up in the morning and, we go to visit and we'll stay because it's far away. And you don't talk to him before he gets his coffee. It has nothing to do with you.
Right.
You can say good morning. You can whisper good morning. You can not be too peppy or too low. It still doesn't matter. The man doesn't want to hear anything before his first cup of coffee. And so when you can understand that and go, it is not me.
Perfect
you can
example.
Compromise and go, okay, I'm not going to say anything till I see he's down at least half of that cup, if not the whole cup. And you're not, there's not an abuse thing happening, right? You're just going, this doesn't work for this person. No harm to me. I'm going to go do me and what works for me. If I have to go outside and talk to the animals in a peppy voice, I will. but I'm still respecting the other person's boundary, so to speak, or the way that they are. And when a person is ready to do their work to change, if it's not fitting their lifestyle, then that's on them. It has
Right.
nothing to do with us.
Right. You know, it's interesting. I think, ironically, the conversation about how to have your own personal emotional freedom
Mm-hmm.
somehow is directly intertwined with thinking and considering about others.
Yes.
And it really is that simple. Think about and consider yourself and be curious for yourself, but you also have to be aware of people around you. Because the answer is never going to be being a recluse, seeing nobody, living alone by yourself, because that's not realistic and that's not healthy. Avoiding other people because it triggers you and triggers your emotions and your nervous system is not an enlightened path to take. If you have to avoid other people so that you don't get triggered, book your free discovery call and talk to Michelle.
We got some work to do.
Because that's not the answer either.
Right.
It's about considering yourself, but also considering other people. And there's a fine line not to fall on either side too much.
Right.
And it's learning where that line is and then following it.
Right, because you don't want to become one of those people pleasers either.
Absolutely.
Because that's not healthy.
That's not healthy.
And you're also not living for yourself. You're giving away your freedom, which you're free to do, by the way.
If absolutely, you choose by all means.
But here's a very, very, very important distinction. If you're giving away your freedom, or you're living in a situation where you're always needing to vent, remember you're choosing it. You're choosing it. That's your freedom to do that.
Correct.
But it's also someone else's freedom to not want to listen to the same thing over and over and over and over again if you're not going to make a change. If you're not going to make a change, that's on you. Then you're allowing it. Mm-hmm. You are basically wanting it. You're inviting it in. And you've got to think about the why. And then again, why am I dealing with this trigger over and over again?
This is so easy to be like a never-ending loop. It's your freedom to do this, but it's their freedom to do that, and then it's your freedom about that to do that. You could just go on a never-ending loop.
Well, and I think that goes back to the only thing that we have control over is ourselves.
Absolutely.
And we cannot fix anybody. We cannot save anybody. We have to start with ourselves first.
Mm-hmm.
And by example, right, we can help others if they choose.
Right.
With their own freedom. If they
right. With their own free will. If you're not sure what that is, watch the movie Bruce Almighty from the early 2000s.
Or be curious. Wow, I've really noticed a difference in you. What have you been doing? Mm-hmm. Or what's your secret? And then if they ask, I've had people ask and then I'll say something and then it's like, well, I don't try to coach me. So it's like, but if you ask for it, you need to be prepared to hear what the other person is saying. You don't have to do anything. Again, freedom. You don't have to apply anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can always.
And in those moments, you chose not to be affected by them saying that because
absolutely,
it has nothing to do with you. They were not prepared to hear that conversation.
Right.
But we're a little over 30 minutes, so I think that's probably a good place to end. But speaking of wanting better for yourself and wanting to make changes, if you are interested in booking a free discovery call with Michelle, which Michelle, why don't you tell them a little bit about what that is?
Well, a free discovery call is a conversation. It's just a conversation. And we find out if we're a right fit, what's happening, what it is you want to change within you or within your life, what's not working. And then we talk about what that would look like. And, right now, because it's my month of my first year anniversary, I have some opportunities that are very special as far as pricing and programs. I'm doing a group program for the first time that I'm really excited about because when you're in a group, you learn from the other people as well. And so you're not just hearing it from one perspective, you're hearing it from different. And so everybody learns differently, everybody absorbs differently. So the group program is exciting. We're going to get started in about 2 weeks. So I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, book your call and let's just have a conversation. And if it's a fit, great. And if it isn't, that's okay too. There's still a connection and you're still going to get value from the conversation because let's face it, I enjoy being in service to other people and I'm going to give you some, a bit of a reality check. And that's what you're here for. That's why you're on the call. So yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting those that book a call. Those that have booked a call have gotten started and are progressing through their program. And so looking forward to it. And next week, we're going to be talking about what does letting go look like. And so it's the perfect expansion of this conversation, right? Of when situations come up and they're uncomfortable and you're not happy. And then what do you do with that? So many people go, well, let it go. And you're like, what does that even mean? And then there's
crazy to piss me off.
And then there's Elsa singing, just let it go. And you're like, what does that mean? And
Yep.
how do you do that? So we're going to be talking about that next week and, really coming up with some good let go techniques, not just saying let it go and not giving you the hows to how to do that. So I'm looking forward to that. And thank you again for joining and bringing some dimension into, the conversation. So it's not just a one person talking to the internet. It's the back and forth.
Absolutely. And all of the link for Michelle that's on the screen right now. And if you're interested in getting in touch with me, those will be in the comments of this video. So check that out. And then, yeah, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all for joining us. And whether you're here live or in the replay, and we look forward to talking to all of you and seeing you next week. Have a great